Aid Workers Unfiltered by the KALU Institute.
Episode 3. Can our communication department support our work to defend human rights and help the most vulnerable?
Sir, I don't know where your ship learned to communicate, but it has the most peculiar dialect.
We're constantly bombarded by messages, solicitation, inquiries. Communication is the base of our interactions as humans. In the humanitarian sector, at an institutional level, communication can be used for marketing purposes, for people to donate, for example. But it can actually have a more important role, and that's what we'll see today with Fadwa, communication specialist.
In the context of global health, the arrival of COVID-19 has aggravated the systematic inequality between societies and countries and has highlighted disparities in getting access to healthcare. The impact of pandemic combined with other intertwined factors including conflict, climate change, led to the first rise in extreme poverty in 2 decades. We need to keep communicating for those values, communicating for respect of human rights.
This is why we need to go back to the root of what communication is and should be used for in our sector. We should stop advertising for our organizations and focus on conveying messages that can help the most vulnerable and allow them to exercise their rights.
Communication represents an essential and very important human need as well as basic human right. Given that promoting human rights is one of the core functions of many NGOs and international organizations. Through meaningful and people-centered communications, we provide a voice to those in most vulnerable situations.
Communication is now globalized and has the power to have a tremendous impact all over the world. You can reach someone thousands of kilometers away just through a tweet or any social media publication.
Communication plays an important role in gaining public support and building trust around the work of human rights all over the world. Communications that is accurate, trustworthy, audience-focused, and tells human stories that offer hope and solution can inspire people to care about protecting human rights and drive action for positive change.
And this is the change we will be looking for when we develop a campaign and try to mobilize the general public to fight human rights violations.
My first advocacy campaign using communication and supporting human rights started in the Gaza Strip. For decades, the Gaza Strip has been plagued by extremely poor water quality. The sole source of fresh water for the Gaza Strip is the coastal aquifer, a water resource shared with Israel, which is occupying power. There were no clean water, and we know that access to clean water is a human right. Despite Israel's announcements at that time for an ease of the blockade in June 2010, many essential water, sanitation, and hygiene materials were still facing delays in entry. That campaign targeted the decision makers in Europe, human rights defenders. It brought attention to the Gaza Strip. It brought attention to these issues, to the human rights violations, to people's rights to have access to clean water. More funding were coming from international community after the campaign, not only on water, but also in the other basic needs and contributed in protecting civilians and protecting their human rights.
There are many ways to convey a message, but having an infinity of options can sometimes get us carried away and make us lose track of what we're aiming for. This is why a good campaign needs to be planned and follows some really concrete steps.
Through my work in Syria, Libya, Yemen, and Gaza, I ensured that any human rights-based narrative campaign should be designed for a specific target audience. So always keep the people in mind you want to address. Even the best planned and most creative campaigns can fail simply because it takes past its intended audience. Thus, your target audience is the starting point when you're choosing the tone of your messages, the possible messengers, as well as the platform you are using to share your content.
So let's get creative and build a world when we can give a voice to those in need.
Communicating on human rights can take different shapes, such as tell a human story, identify issues of broader interest to the general public, trigger people's core values, embrace positivity, give your message an authentic voice.
Thanks a lot, Fadwa, for sharing your experience with us. And stay tuned, more episodes coming soon.